When you release energy, the outside world can change.
Hello, I'm Karen Mellors.
Hello there, I'm Dr. Rosie Daniel.
You've just tuned in to Alive and Loving It, and we're here to help you bring joy and energy back to your life.
Today's very special guest is my friend and colleague Rowena Beaumont. Rowena works with me in my Dr. Rosie Daniel clinic and is providing amazing relief for my clients, both with short and long-term relief of emotional distress. So many of my clients are life-threatened, looking at the very big questions of living and dying, but also fears of doctors and hospitals and needles. So Rowena can help greatly with this, but she goes far deeper to look at past trauma and phobias and anxieties, which might be within the nervous system and suppressing the immunity, all important when people are trying to recover from long-term illness. So she's here to tell us about her therapy, emotional freedom technique, and also the regenerative healing that she builds in alongside.
Hi there. So good that you could join us again this week, and we are chatting about a wonderful technique which is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Now, Rosie, I know you are a huge fan of this and you recommend to so many people, don't you?
I absolutely do, because as I've mentioned, I'm a mind-body doctor, and it's very often the emotions that people are holding, the distress, either to do with what they're going through at the moment or wounds and traumas from the past, which is actually pulling on their health, on their energy, and in the way of their healing. So when I met Rowena almost 15 years ago, and she explained to me that this is a really actually rapid technique through which you can release emotional energy. And so for people who are suffering the shock and the upset, the fear to do with diagnosis, or knowing that it is, when they get triggered emotionally, it starts their symptoms like asthma. It's so incredibly useful. So everything has been way better for me in my practice since meeting you, Rowena.
Rowena, thank you so much for joining us this week and being one of our very first guests on Alive and Loving It. So please tell us, what is EFT?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. It's wonderful to be able to talk about the work that I'm very passionate about. So EFT, it comes under the umbrella of energy psychology, and I like to explain it as a mind-body technique. As we tune into an issue or a problem or something going on with us, we can then, by tapping on the ends of the meridians, we can then connect with the body and allow the body to bring up what's needed to bring up in that moment and work through it. So it's a very good system. And that's what I love about it. It's like works with the body. And the client needs to be sitting down. It's very simple. I guide the client how to do it. And I've just seen phenomenal changes in people. So I kept going it, and it can go deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, I'm extremely passionate because I've seen the results.
Well, I had one session with you last year in a particularly difficult time I was going through, and it was a lifesaver. How does it work in the body? So, Rosie has shared with us that emotions are stored in the body. So is this a way of releasing them?
Yes, well, what happens, it's said that sort of stresses, shocks, anxieties, traumas, little traumas, larger traumas, things that happen to us in our lives, they get stuck in the energy system of our body. So what happens is when we connect our mind to our body, so we're tuning into what happened, say that there was a past trauma that was uncomfortable, we'd like to just clear from our system, then there's like a sentence which it works on the unconscious mind, which is traditional, and we tap on the ends of the meridians, mainly around the head area. And as you tap, tuning into the issue, it starts to clear, if it's ready to clear, the emotions in the body. what could happen is people burp or shed a tear, or they have tingles coming out of their head or their hands or places in their body. So there's variations of how the energy is released from the body.
So I just heard you say tapping. So some people might not have heard of EFT or emotional freedom technique, but I have heard it called tapping as well. So that's the process, is it? What does it include in a session?
It's called emotional freedom techniques, but some people call it tapping. And it's a bit like Chinese whispers. It's grown, evolved, and you'll find people doing it different ways. I tend to work in the traditional way because that's how I was trained and that's how I know works effectively. And then it becomes creative as you evolve with it. And so your energy is connecting with your client and you sort of have an inner knowing as you work. And then you support your client as client led with what they say. And then you work through what emotion that they're ready to work through. So it's completely client led. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
And because sometimes they might think they're coming for something, but something else pops up. So you work with that. And it's just flowing with the energy so that that can release at the right time from the body. And usually it's gentle. I do ask my clients to have a gentle process, and it is a gentle process usually. And so that's why I love it.
Can I just jump in and say that one of the reasons that I know the value of EFT so strongly is because I came to Rowena when I was going through a period of really intense grief. It was very, very hard for me to work because I was so preoccupied with the emotional pain that I was in. And Rowena helped me, and I would come in on a sort of grief level 9.5 out of 10. And I would come out on about a 3 out of 10. And it was like, where has all that feeling gone? So my situation hadn't changed, but my emotional level had changed completely. And a lot of people spend their time flooded with emotion, whether that be anxiety or fear or anger or whatever it might be. So I find myself calling it like an emotional detox. But the thing about Rowena is also an amazing healer. So when we met, I said to Rowena, how about if you're using the emotional freedom technique to help people let go of difficult emotion, and then behind that, you're flowing in your beautiful healing energy, and to replace where that difficult energy's been, that you're pouring in this lovely healing energy. So I think you do that as well, Rowena.
Oh, thank you. Well, that worked really well to actually combine EFT with the healing work. And that's why I've sort of evolved EFT to my own, which is an emotional freedom light technique, to bring in a healing technique combined with it. Because when people have cancers, I mean, they have, as you know, Rosie, there's just a lot. There's the shock and getting them into sort of a neutral space, being in the now. Because we can't do the what ifs or the fantasy journeys of making things up because it hasn't happened. We have to be in the now. Everything's fine right now. And so therefore in the now, so within the future, things will evolve the correct way for them. And, it's wonderful working with Rosie. We've seen people sort of push through the cancer, come out the other side and all clear. So I have an amazing positive outlook when I'm working with people because I've seen it happen. But it's getting their emotions cleared from their body. What do they need to work on? What in the past has been stressing them, upsetting them? Let's just go there when you're ready. Let's move it out of your body. So clear all the stuff. Then from there, we can move forward. And once you're released with all the stuff, the body has a greater chance of healing.
Well, it's so important what you just said about helping people to come back into the present, because, of course, when they get the scary diagnosis, that sort of running ahead, and right to the point of dying and being out of life and leaving family, people do run forward. So it is a very, very charged time. But what I particularly love is the way that you can flow between the acute need of what's going on in the present with people, and even dealing with phobias around hospitals or treatments, into the deeper things that are going on within the family network or from the past. So let's talk about some of the people we've worked with, Rowena, because we have some amazing examples of people that we worked with together. So I'm thinking about a client we'll call B. You made amazing steps with her. Would you like to tell us?
Yes, well, B came, you referred her to me, and she was really ready to express emotions, release her emotions. She had an issue which was with her mother. Her mother had gone to Morocco and had a fling and came back and had this child, but she didn't really own the child. She said that she was looking after this child. And so this B grew up to think that her mother didn't love her. But that wasn't the case. When we worked with EFT, what was happening was I was guiding her to shift the emotion and to see things from a different perspective. And sometimes I say, have you thought of it this way? And what I was saying after we'd done quite a lot of tapping, that her mother loved her so much, she found a way of keeping her. That touches my heart still. And she had to find, sorry, having a moment there, she found a way of keeping her so that, but it was hard for her with all the dynamics with her family and everything. And so what happened was, Barbara, as I said, the releases can be burping, can be tingles, can be sensations, but she burped like you'd never heard. And I just let her. And I then did, as Rosie said, I was then doing healing work on the couch. So I was giving her healing, still the burping. I didn't know where it came from. I just let her release all this energy. And she went home that evening, and I got an email, I think it was an email the next day, saying, you're not going to believe this, but my strange mother called me. And we decided to meet up. So when you release energy, the outside world can change because there's a block there. So that was a very good case to show how the energy moves. And then they became friends again, and her mother was with her. And unfortunately, she did move on to her soul transition, but it was wonderful watching her clear what was blocked in her body.
Amazing. So this is very beautiful and deep part of the work. You know, the question of what we need to clear before we pass out of life. But I just want to ask you about another client we'll call G, who had a different need really for EFT.
Well, G, yes, I remember when she came to see me, and I know she was having blood tests, and I think she was secondaries. You remember the case probably better than me on the medical side, Rosie.
Yeah.
And I remember her crying her eyes out coming up the stairs, and I thought, goodness me, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do EFT. Made her a cup of tea, and we were chatting. She said her bloods were showing cancer, and she was devastated. I said, again, I brought her back into the moment. Let's just be in the moment. And she was a very fit lady. She loves sport and everything. And calmed her really, that session. I calmed her with EFT. Then she came back again. I saw her each week at that stage, I think. And each time she was getting stronger emotionally, we worked through stuff. It took quite a lot to get to her father's stuff, but we did. And then eventually it was, which she didn't want to share, was her husband's infidelity, which was very hard for her. But she did share it. And Rosie, sort of with Rosie's way of working, she got into making a life for herself as well, like enjoying sort of things in the art world that she liked. And she was on a different track thinking about herself. About 6 months later, she texted me from the oncologist just after and said, Rowena, she said, they're saying whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And that's you and Rosie. And so she then felt very enthused to keep going. She had a grandchild on the way. She was very excited about life. She had made a bit of a transformation under Rosie's umbrella with Health Creation to shift things, which is wonderful. And then I think it was about a year later, she texted me again saying, I said, there's no cancer in my body. There's no cancer.
And it was, as you say, I mean, this was a lung secondary of breast cancer. So this was a serious development. I did manage to get her some ablative treatment for the lesion in her lung. So that was another part of the healing journey, because in integrative medicine, we do try and combine the best of all worlds. In Oriental medicine, the lungs are linked to grief. And so always you'd be looking to see, has there been a trigger to do with a long-term wounding? And with G, it was on the male side, a big problem with her father, and then also with the marriage that she'd chosen, where she kept on being let down and let down and let down. So it was very, very, this was 10 years ago already, Rowena, do you realise? And that is pretty remarkable, because I personally feel that this emotional release work that you did has stabilised things for her. Because, we say in the holistic approach, what the mind represses, the body expresses. So this was a very powerful because G is still living. So just shows what can happen. And then I'd like to bring to mind a client, Jay, who was a doctor that came to you, that I referred to you. So that was a big old challenge because, of course, he knew with a secondary bowel cancer what he was dealing with, what the prognosis was likely to be. So we had to work with the normal levels of fear, but also what he knew as a doctor.
Yeah, I think he came to me before you because he's heard about me from someone else.
Oh, it's the other way around. So it
was the other way around.
Him to me.
So,
okay.
I did, which is unusual, but I did. And what I do sometimes, the interesting thing is that he came and he was crying, and he had his wife with him, and he was in tears, and he said, I'm a doctor. What can you do to help me? He said, can you help me? Because my prognosis is dreadful. I don't know if I'm going to be here in a number of months. And he said, I've got 3 daughters to bring up. I said, well, first of all, we've got to get you into balance. Like, let's get rid of all those fears. Just get you into balance. You've got a lovely wife, a roof over your head. You know what you know. And let's just put the medical model to one side a minute. That has its great value, as you know, you're a doctor. But let's look at a different model. So I'm going to suggest you go and see Rosie and embrace a different model and see how we can help support you as a team and me with the emotions. And then he got into balance. So a few sessions, he came every week. And then I remember because Rosie organised retreats to France, which we did every year. We did for about 8 years, I think. I said to him, on about the 3rd session, I said to him, why don't you think about coming to France? And he said, I remember him looking at me. He didn't say anything. And I'm thinking, she thinks I'm going to live beyond a couple of months. Because this is about February and it's June, May, the holiday wasn't. So he went to Rosie, booked the holiday, came 2 years running. He was under Rosie's umbrella. He had an extended life with his family, saw his children grow up, and it was 7 years beyond, or even more than 7 years beyond what the expectations were, which he thought. So I worked with all the emotions to clear what we could. And it's also forgiveness. When he was younger, studying, he didn't look after his body, and we had to forgive him for that. He didn't eat properly, he got junk foods. Instead of thinking, my body needs looking after during this process of studying. So there was a lot of forgiveness along the journey. But he was clear. He was clear of all the emotions as he knew he was going to approach end of life at some point.
That was a magnificent piece of work. Just I so honour you because he was so frightened. He was shaking with fear. And, you talk about being able to bring him into the present and, almost saying you are actually still alive, by the way, and helping him to just let go of those emotions and be in the present. What a gift you gave him. And, I remember those videos he sent us of his daughters dancing around him. And I think the oldest one reached 13. So, and how proud he was to see her coming of age in that way, that he actually was there for that. Yeah. Just what are you feeling, Karen, hearing all of this?
Well, I am so moved. I'm so touched. The first thing that's landing with me is, first of all, you two are a dynamic duo, like superheroes. When I know you'll have you both on my side forever. But what landed with me most was how much hope you bring to people, and how different that is to the experience that I've had when I've visited doctors before. I think there's a lot of fear involved in the medical profession and not wanting to give people too much hope. And yet, what you're describing is helping people see past a diagnosis and be in the present and see that they're living and making the most of the now, and that actually, nobody can tell you when you're going to die. That is it up to you. And if you see yourself living, if you see yourself doing something else, then that very likely is going to happen. So I just want to thank you both first for having the courage, to give people that hope. Rosie, what happens when somebody is given hope rather than a horrible diagnosis?
I have a lady living at the moment. She's out with her story, Gillian Gill. She's written a book called Take Control and Live. And I'm sure we will be having Gilly on to tell her story. Gilly recovered from stage 4 endometrial cancer with no surgery and no chemotherapy at all. And later on, I said to her, what on earth, of all the modalities you used, what do you think it was that worked for you? And she said, well, you told me. And I said, what shall I tell you? And she said, you told me my body has got mechanisms to heal cancer. We just need to switch them back on again. So I went away from there thinking, well, I'll just switch them back on again then. So, I didn't say that on purpose. I didn't plan it. It just popped out of my mouth. But what happened in that moment was her belief system changed. Yeah. So from seeing cancer as a one-way journey with to the exit door, she suddenly had a different frame of reference where she could believe that cancer could be healed. Mm. And she could believe that the mechanisms for healing were within herself. So the voice of authority can go both ways. We can, a consultant can tell a person that their prognosis is really poor, and they can practically die to the day. But what Rowena and I do, and others in our sphere, we reopen the window of hope, and we start to heal the timeline, so that we, because like a car crash, when you get that diagnosis, and your sense of future is shattered. So there's a visualization that I give people where you are, okay, you've been in the car crash, you've got out, you've dropped that mantle, and you're now walking back down your corridor, your timeline, and you're seeing yourself in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. Oh, how about 30 years, So you are beginning to re-inhabit your timeline, because Wonderful. That is how, in reality, all of us, that this thought precedes energy, and when we can visualize things, it makes it much more likely that they happen. But Rowena, can I bring you to perhaps mentioning client A, another amazing lady who had a diagnosis of melanoma, secondary melanoma. How many years ago is that now?
Oh, goodness.
7, 8?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, she came to me, lovely lady, and she took to EFT very well, clearing her emotions. But and then in the pandemic, she liked to go to St David's in Wales, to the Lady Chapel, to do her healing. I said, well, we can go there, don't worry. It was the pandemic. I thought to myself, I can't let down Rosie's cancer clients or any clients. I have to put it online. I have to do my healing work online. I got all the tools I could think of, which I learned, which I could adapt online. And then I said, we're going on a journey to St. David's and we're going to the Lady Chapel. So we're going to do some EFT and then we're going to go to the Lady Chapel. And all I do is actually facilitate the frequency, and they connect with their source energy, and we bring in the highest of light and the highest of frequency to work in their physical body for any healing, every cell, molecule, and electron of their body. So all I'm doing is facilitating it.
All you're doing? Did you say all you're doing? That sounded like really quite profound stuff there, Rowena.
Well, I'm not sure how to rephrase that. But what happened was, soon after that, she was all clear of cancer. So that proved to me I can do my healing work online. And I go through systems of the bodies. It's just like, where the need is in the body, or where they've had perhaps an operation to clear the cells.
Yeah, you took her to her sacred place, which also, by the way, happens to be one of my sacred places. If you haven't been to St. David's on the very west edge of Wales, it is so beautiful. There's a beautiful old cathedral in a hollow, and it's where the saints came across from Ireland, Columbus and others. That was the first place they docked. It's absolutely beautiful. But you were able, from her home in South Wales, to lift her out and take her to her sacred place, where she was able to hear the wisdom or the healing messages, or to receive those, what you've just called higher frequencies, healing frequencies. She was able to receive that in her mind's eye. So, that's even more amazing, isn't it? That you don't even have to have a person there with you, that you can be teaching people to tap themselves online, so that you're not only giving them therapy, but they are learning a technique that they can take away with them. But you can also take people into that higher healing energy in that very beautiful way, which, people so appreciate. And, this is another person whose fear level was enormous,
I know I've really, really appreciated that, Rowena. In my session, you taught me a tapping method that I have used many, many times and it's particularly in the middle of the night for me, when I'm very fearful. I can be fine during the day, and then I wake up in the middle of the night and all of those thoughts start, and I can always find something to worry about. And instead of now trying to solve the problem that I think I've got, I stop and I start tapping. So you taught me to tap on the side of my hand, and then I'm tapping around my eyes. And this technique, it just takes, sometimes I do it 3 or 4 times if the fear's really bad. Sometimes it just takes once, and I combine it with some breathing. But that's been a big wake-up call for me, is to stop trying to solve the problem. What can you do in the middle of the night anyway? That's crazy. And now I'm just like, no, put that to one side, stop trying to solve it, and tap and breathe. And I go back to sleep within minutes.
Amazing.
So I've really, really appreciated that it's like a very quick, I'm in the moment, I'm in this fearful place, and you can grab that out of your toolkit and use it. Thank you.
It's brilliant. Brilliant. And Rowena, you've used this. I've seen you use it with people for phobias, also dealing with fear, scanxiety, fear of scans, fear of doctors and hospitals. But I also really love the way that you can help prepare people for the end of life. Tell us a little bit about that, finally.
Well, people are sort of heading towards end of life. I think they kind of know, and they're scared. So one of the key things is there anything in your life you would like to clear or forgive yourself? Or we've all done things wrong, haven't we? We've all said things we shouldn't. We've all made mistakes. So let's just go through the timeline of your life and see what needs to clear, so that you can feel peaceful within yourself. So that's one of the things. And I remember having this, one of your clients you referred to, who lived the fast lane. I don't know how many Ferraris he had. I don't know. He had a girl in every port, I think, one of those drunk, smoke, enjoyed life. And he did meet someone very lovely, I think in his early 40s, but he was smoking. He used to say, "This is going to kill me." And so a statement becomes a vow becomes something very strong within you. And as he approached, as we talked about this and did EFT with it, sort of say, he realized he shouldn't have said that. He's telling his friends, never say this cigarette's going to kill me. Never, ever say it. But he knew he did have lung cancer, bless him. He was lovely. And what EFT did in the shifting of perspective was, we're on the planet to enjoy life. So that's okay. So let's forgive yourself for what you think you did wrong or whatever, and live the fast lane, because actually, would you say you have enjoyed life? He said, yes. Well, so that was in a way, a real big thing for him. And he could actually feel peaceful moving on. And I think he came to me within 2 weeks of dying, and I said, we're not going to do EFT, because I sort of staggered in my room when we were in Bath. And I said, we're not going to do EFT today. I said, I'm going to hold you in this light. He said, that's why I've come. So I hold people in a frequency to enable them to do what is needed to prepare them for end of life, which is moving on of the soul.
I'm thinking of our mutual client, Dee, at the moment, who has come from a very blokey world, a man who has probably held a huge amount of grief and distress, but he is so in tune with you. He comes out of your sessions and he said, more or less, I have seen the light. He is. I don't mean to be sort of silly about it, but he's saying things, and his family are looking at him as if to say, are you high? Because he's saying, I'm at peace. I feel connected to the light. He told me that he'd been swimming in the sea, in the ocean, in a warmer part of the world, and that he'd had this complete unity experience, that he had come to feel one with the sea, because you've opened up in his mind that whole bandwidth of perception that he would never have had before. So, as you're hearing, the things that go on with Rowena cover a very broad spectrum, from the very basic things like somebody being able to have an MRI scan or a drip or a treatment, right to being prepared to shed all the emotional trauma that's in their system prior to making their ascension. So I have huge respect for you, my dear colleague.
Likewise, Rosie.
Just wonderful.
It's precious, precious work. And thank you, both of you. You really are the dynamic duo. And I just want to let everybody know that's listening that we will share the links to EFT. We will share links to Rowena as well as Rosie on our website and through all the marketing that we do. So I really want to help as many people as possible know that this is an option for them. And one final thought from me that really struck me, and again, we could have another episode about this, is that as people are shifting whatever block is inside them, how the universe then responds. That moment when you said, and the lady, the client said that her mum had been back in touch. That is just such a beautiful, beautiful moment, and one that I will carry that story with me forever. So thank you so much for sharing that. So Rowena, you have been one of our very first guests. I'm sure we could talk about even more clients, but I'm just watching the time. So I will bring it to a close. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rowena. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Alive and Loving It. We really hope that today's conversation has sparked your passion and shown you ways to open up into the vibrant life that's possible for you.
Absolutely, Rosie. I mean, we have to remember transformation begins with love, and that's self-love, love for others, and love for our beautiful planet. When you embrace love and you just allow yourself to receive as much as you give, you unlock the fullest potential of your life.
That is the truth, and we're here to support you every step of the way on your journey. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, please join our community, check out our trainings and our services and the events where we can all go deeper together. And do please send us your feedback. We want to hear your ideas for the podcast, who you'd like to see us interview, the questions you want to ask, and get answered through the contact page on our website, aliveandlovingit.org.
I can't wait to read them. And when you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter and updates. And what about following us on Instagram as well? We are at Alive and Loving It Community. Once you've signed up to the newsletter, you'll receive extra notes from today's show and more inspiration to help you live your most vibrant life.
Thank you for being with us. Keep shining, stay true to yourself, and remember, this is your time to live your fullest, healthiest life.
So until next time, keep doing what you love most in life. I know Rosie and I will be, always. We're so excited to connect with you on the next episode of Alive and Loving It. And we welcome you with open hearts to our Alive and Loving It community.